Welcome to the Main podcast. I'm your host, Laura, your unofficial mentor and motivator. Have you ever looked at a decision in your life and realized you didn't really make it? Maybe it was your job, maybe it was a relationship that you stayed in for far too long, that version of yourself you keep performing. Not because it feels true, but because it feels like that's what's expected. That quiet moment when you realize you've been living someone else's story, and that's when autonomy comes in. Autonomy isn't just about freedom in the big, dramatic ways, like quitting a job or moving to another country even. It's in the small, everyday things, like saying no without guilt or asking for what you truly need. It's trusting your gut. But here's the truth. Autonomy can slip away without you even noticing. It keeps chipping away with things like peer pressure, with fear, and love even. When we care so much about others that we pretty much forget to take care of ourselves. And in today's episode, we're unpacking what it really means to have autonomy. That subtle or sometimes not so subtle ways in which it can be taken away from us. And most importantly, how to take it back. Because the moment you remember you have a choice is the moment you begin to heal. So let's start with the basics. Why is autonomy so important in the first place? It's more than just making choices. It is the heartbeat of feeling alive, aligned, and empowered. When you feel autonomous, you feel that sense of ownership. So you feel like your life is truly yours. It improves your mental health. You feel so much better about yourself, and it helps you build confidence over time. It also helps fuel your motivation because at the end of the day, you're making your own decisions. Let's put it like this. Imagine you're starting a new job and you have to decide between taking a bus or driving there. You find out that it's 30 minutes away, so obviously you can't walk. Riding a bike is going to take you forever. You can, but you weigh the pros and cons between the bus and driving. And at first glance, you could say, well, driving there, I'm going to have to sit there in traffic. I will probably have to pay a lot more for parking every day, which could get annoying, right? It chips at your budget. And on the contrary, taking the bus, it's simple. You just sit there. You could read a book on your way there. You feel like you have a little bit more freedom, and you're not paying as much for transportation, essentially. But then with time, you realize that when you take the bus, you don't really have a say on where the bus goes, right? You also don't have a say on how many stops the bus takes, or if there's a bus that's full, now you have to wait for the next bus, all the factors that you have no control over. Then you start to realize like, well, maybe it's okay to drive myself there. At least I have control over where I'm going, which routes I want to take. You could stop at the supermarket on your way home. All of these little things that you don't really think are a big deal end up becoming so. And that's what autonomy is. Autonomy is the steering wheel of your life. And without it, you're just a passenger. And trust me, I, more than anyone, would love to be a passenger princess because I always end up driving everywhere. So I would give the world to be a passenger princess. But at the end of the day, when it comes to your autonomy, you have control over when you go home, when you can go somewhere where you can leave. Again, I'm using this in a symbolic way, but I hope you understand what I mean when we talk about autonomy. Now, we have to wonder, if autonomy is so vital, why do so many people lose touch with it? Let's talk about those subtle and sometimes painful ways our sense of control gets chipped away. And first, it's the cultural and family expectations. It's the, well, this is just what you're supposed to do script. It is that idea that, well, this is what we've been doing all this time. This is what everybody has to do. And it's never questioned. This is what you're supposed to do after you graduate. And instead of pursuing your own dreams, Now, even if you go to college, I've seen this many times, people will graduate and then go work for their family business. And there's nothing wrong with that. But is that really what they wanted to do? Maybe, maybe not. If you watch Succession, it's a perfect example of how the siblings are pitted against each other in order for the dad to gauge who really deserves to be the company boss, the CEO. And you could tell some of them didn't even really care for that position or wanted to be involved. At the end of the day, they wanted to make their dad happy. So it wasn't really that they were so passionate about it. It was more of getting the approval of their dad that in turn made them want to compete or at least try to make themselves more qualified to be the next head of the company. Then there are toxic relationships where people control, they guilt trip you, they make you even fear making your own decisions because at the end of the day, it's what benefits them, right? And we saw this with the Diddy trials and the whole Cassie situation where he took control over almost everything in her life. If you don't know who Sean Diddy Combs is, he's a music mogul who's been around since the 90s, and he's been responsible for the success of many artists during the different decades. And he was dating someone named Cassie, who was an aspiring artist, and essentially, he took over her life to the point where she felt like she couldn't leave the relationship. Not only were they involved professionally, but also romantically. And he was very abusive. He was an abusive man who did not let her make her own choices and even went as far as threatening her, right? So the idea is that eventually with time, she ended up developing Stockholm Syndrome, which is why a lot of people wonder, well, why didn't she just leave? And it's very hard to do when somebody convinces you that you're not worthy of anything else other than what you're getting at the time. And so even if you leave a door open, right, to the house where you're being kidnapped, when you develop Stockholm Syndrome, you just cannot leave. There's something where you just end up trauma bonding with the person and you don't feel like there's any strength for you to leave that situation. And as a result, you end up enduring a lot of abuse, a lot of unfortunate experiences. And that's what ended up happening with Cassie. He made her all of these promises. He made her believe that she had all of these options and everything was going to be wonderful and great. But little by little at the same time, he was chipping away at her self-esteem. She started to believe that she didn't deserve better, that everything that she was going to achieve in life was going to be because of him. And that's kind of sick. We don't want to ever feel like we don't have control over our lives. And you see that even in work environments, which she was also in, where it plays that part too with micromanaging, having that lack of voice, experiencing burnout because you're so afraid to talk and to voice that you're overworked, that you're doing too much, that you're taking on too much work, not being given consideration when it comes to taking breaks or even taking time off. And these things slowly make you feel like a cog in a machine. Like you're in a place where there's no way out because you're pretty much dependent either on the income, on the resources, on the status even. And so you're afraid that if you let something go, you're going to lose not only what you've worked so hard for, but yourself. And that's the danger in that because you've kind of already lost yourself if you feel like you cannot escape that type of environment. Sometimes it's even internal. Sometimes people don't put that much pressure on you. It's almost implied because we end up silencing ourselves out of fear, guilt, or the belief that we just don't deserve more. And that voice in our head says, who am I to want something different? If this is what is being offered to me, what else can I really achieve? What else can I really aspire to if the people around me are telling me that this is what I deserve? And I could tell you my own story. I mean, I don't want to get into too much because it will take me all day to explain or to talk about. But I went through my own experience with losing my autonomy. It started when I was a little girl, where my parents migrated to the US and we were left in Dominican Republic. And during that time, we were left with a family to take care of my brother and me. But the problem with that was that my family was not aware of all of the things that we were going through. So we were not allowed to do anything. I was essentially a slave in someone's home. And as a result, I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't play with other children. And I was about 7 years old. Sometimes even go to school. I was beaten and tortured and all these things. And again, I don't want to get too much into it, but that was the first taste that I got with the way that society can potentially take everything from you. And so you have to be careful with the way that you allow people to just get comfortable with that idea of making decisions for you. Because it could start with just, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I got this for you. And then it could escalate into something much more. As a result of all of that, you also end up building patterns as you get older, where you find yourself in relationships that kind of remind you of that, and then you think it's acceptable, but it's not. You have to remember that no matter what, you're supposed to feel respected, loved, appreciated, not humiliated, not hurt, not treated like you don't deserve better. The minute that you start feeling that, it should be a red flag for you. Those alarms should be going off in your head. And it's an indication that you're probably in the wrong place. You're probably dealing with people you should not have to deal with. And the truth is that no matter where you are, who you're dealing with, where you're going, you should always feel that your self-worth is untouchable. You have to learn to detach yourself from the expectations of others and always follow that intuition. Realize what is good for you, what is best for you. It is something that you always have to practice, because when you think that you finally found someone or you're in a place where you could trust someone, we tend to kind of just fall back and say, well, I finally feel safe here. Believe me when I tell you that you never really know. So I encourage you to always keep that little antenna up there, don't retire it. Just make sure you're upgrading your little software in your head so that you're not falling behind. Because once you start to feel too comfortable, you could eventually end up in that situation like that. And that's not what we want. We want to thrive. We want to succeed. We want to feel safe and loved and respected. We just want to live. And that's the bare minimum. All right, so now that we know how autonomy can disappear, here's the good news. It's not gone forever. It is something that, like a muscle, it may turn into fat, but when you work out a little bit, it comes back. So let's explore how to start reclaiming your voice, one decision at a time. And you can start by naming where you've given it away. It could be a situation, it could be a place, it could be at your job, in your relationships. Ask yourself, where am I saying yes when I really mean no? And you'll know that because something in your little heart is going to tell you, okay, this doesn't feel right. This is feeling a little anxious with this decision. I'm not comfortable with where this is going. And then start practicing micro decisions. You have to start building that muscle again. And the way that you can do that is by saying, okay, what are things that I can control right now? Stand in that power, and even if it's something that nobody's asking you about. And I want you to practice that muscle of saying, you know what? I usually like roast beef. I mean, I don't know. I haven't eaten those kind of sandwiches in a while, but I usually like roast beef. But now I want an avocado toast. It could be something as simple as that. I always wear black. Why do I always wear black? Well, maybe today I wear green or beige or something out of the norm. Just to say I made a decision, a conscious decision of picking something different because I can, and own it. Own that decision. And eventually when those big decisions come, You're going to say, what is the decision that's going to make me happy? The other thing is to relearn assertive communication. You have to say what you need without an apology. You've seen it many times, especially if you start paying attention to when people talk and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I want this. I mean, I do it sometimes too. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think this is a better option. Well, why are you saying sorry? That's your opinion. That's what you think is right. That is your decision. You don't have to say sorry. Follow your heart, let your intuition guide you to where you need to be. If you want to change your mind, that is okay. You shouldn't feel like you are stuck in a place or in a time or situation that you don't want to be in. You have to know the difference between telling, for example, your significant other that you had to spend $500 to fix your brakes on your car versus being nervous and anxious that you had to take out $20 from the account because you were hungry all day and had nothing to eat. Protect your peace, know the difference. And if it feels hard to feel like you can do something like this, please remember that you don't have to do it alone. It is completely okay to want to talk to someone. Autonomy doesn't mean isolation. It's okay to speak your truth. And I guarantee you that the more and more you practice making your own decisions without outside influences, the more and more you're going to feel at peace, the more your mental health is going to improve, the more you're going to feel confident to speak up, to stand up for yourself, to live the life that you want to live, not caring about what anyone else thinks. And I understand that for some of you, this could be absolutely hard. I always recommend if there's someone that you need to speak to, whether it's therapy, a coach, even a friend, I highly encourage you to do that. When I learned all the stuff that happened to me, which I never really took the time to process all of those experiences, all of that trauma. And I remember I went to therapy one time when I was pregnant with my child because I was going through so much. And my doctors were just concerned, right? Like, hey, she's pregnant, she's stressed. We need to make sure that she's okay. And so they sent me to a therapist to talk. The interesting thing is when I told them about my story, the therapist, he told me one thing that I will never forget. He told me that people who experience, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. He told me that people who go through the life that I had to experience growing up, statistically, they go through one of these three options. The first one is they end up being drug addicts because it's hard for them to cope with that experience. They end up in jail because, again, they are living a reckless life. They cannot cope with the things that they've experienced, so they end up doing crazy things to cope. And the third one is they end up 6 feet under. To me, that was eye-opening because I never really thought about it that way. I've been on survival mode all of my life. He even told me you should talk to people about your experience because you're handling it very well. And believe me, it hasn't been easy at all. I isolate all the time, especially because of that. And, most people don't understand it or even realize that I'm doing it. But it's the reason why I am here talking to you guys in this podcast, because I want you to see and I want you to know that you can get through whatever it is that you're going through. You can get through the mud. You can get through hell. Okay? You can go through so much and still survive. And I know that you're thinking, well, it's probably easy for you. But trust me, I've had to deal with a lot of self-regulation. It's been a lifetime of reflection to truly understand who I am and what I deserve and where I belong and how much I am worth. It wasn't given to me. I wasn't being spoiled and, given all of the great treatment. I've been through a lot. And what it has taught me is that none of it had anything to do with me. And so I want you to step away from this episode and understand that you have a choice, that you can get through anything. So I want you to ask yourself, where in your life have you silenced your own voice? And what's one small decision you can take back this week? If this episode made you think twice about who's really in the driver's seat of your life, hit pause and write down one area where you want your power back. Okay, this is the homework for this week. Where do you want your power back? Think about it. And then share this with someone who may need the same reminder. You don't have to earn the right to make your own choices. You already have it. So go use it. Thank you for listening to the Manalore podcast. I know I got a little emotional this week, even though I joke around a lot, but I hope this was helpful to you. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share it with the world. This is extremely hard for me to do, so I hope you're enjoying it. Until next time, take care. Bye.